All right, you're tuned in to, in my humble opinion, Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Dr. Umar Johnson is sitting down at the table with us today. We're going to talk about church now because, Dr. Johnson, I've certainly heard your comments about the place of church and religion amongst our black people. I know with a lot of the issues that we're facing, police brutality, racism, things like that, that a lot of our black people, that's where we run to. People would say we're very forgiving when it comes to people taking our lives. People would say that we're ready to move past the different injustices that happen to us because, according to the Bible, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to forgive and let God, work everything else out. But you don't necessarily agree with that viewpoint, do you?
No, I don't agree with it at all. In fact, it harkens me back to my comment I made earlier in the interview with regard to black people being politically immature. You cannot use the Bible to overcome white supremacy because the Bible does not reference white supremacy, nor does the Quran. So since neither one of them includes information on how to deal with white supremacy, then the solution to white supremacy cannot be found in those books.
Mm-hmm.
Keep religion in its place. And I think that one of the
What's its place?
Religion has been to...
I'm sorry, Dr. Johnson, I don't know if you heard me. You said keep religion in its place. Can you elaborate on that a bit? What is its place?
Religion in its place means do not allow your religious beliefs to affect your political and economic decisions. Okay. Religions are colorblind. Black people are victims of white supremacy. So that right there means that they cannot coexist in the same space and time. You cannot have a system of belief that is totally colorblind, okay, while at the same time you're fighting for your survival under a system that is very color conscious, mm-hmm. white supremacy. Mm-hmm. So, religion is yours, but at the same time, we have to engage our reality as we see. And psychologically speaking, one of the characteristics of mental illness is a person's inability to accurately perceive their reality. Mm-hmm. When you cannot accurately perceive your reality, that means you're out of touch. Mm-hmm. That means that there may be some degree of mental illness there. It's like someone with schizophrenia. They mm-hmm. can't perceive their reality accurately because their imagination constantly keeps creeping into their interpretation of reality. Mm-hmm. That's black people. Our religious imagination keeps on creeping into our interpretation of reality. Whenever you study invasion, colonization, and empire, mm-hmm. religion has always been used by the oppressor to control the oppressed because it evangelizes the oppression. Mm-hmm. It deifies the oppression. In other words, somebody gets killed by the police. Go to church. Mm-hmm. The pastor doesn't organize you to stand up and fight against police brutality, to mm-hmm. organize. And you know what the pastor tells you? Mm-hmm. Put your faith in God. Mm-hmm. We're going to pray for God to stop this. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind that the meek shall inherit the earth. Mm-hmm. A rich man will, a camel will go through the eye of a needle before a rich man is, mm-hmm. Inherit heaven. Mm-hmm. So it makes you feel holy. Now you feel good being broke. You feel good being oppressed. You think it's divine to be whipped and killed in name. Mm-hmm. The job of the church is to deify oppression, to make you feel that you're being blessed by God by not standing up for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the way that it's taught, let me ask your opinion of that. Because Christianity gets called a white religion a lot, and but as I look through major religions and even Greek mythology, you see a lot of you see similar threads. You see a unifying message even. So my question to you is it that the way that we were taught, by missionaries that go to Africa and by slave masters, is that what makes it white, the way we were taught it, or do you feel like that the scriptures themselves were created by white supremacists?
There's nothing in the Bible, in and of itself, that I would consider to be, there's very little in the Bible that I have a problem with in terms of pure information. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with Jesus' teachings or none of that. I think we need to keep in mind, though, the teachings of Jesus were for his own people. That's the part that we don't understand. Mm-hmm. Jesus was very clear. I come into the house of Israel. His lessons were for how you deal with each other. His lessons were for not on how you deal with your enemy. You're supposed to be gracious and forgive it to other African people. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to turn the other cheek to other African people. Jesus was given instructions for how to operate within his culture. Mm-hmm. He was not given instructions for how to operate during war with white people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the national anthem of We Shall Overcome. There was the shootings in Florida, the LBG community, at an LBG club, and the community came together in response to that, and they had vigils, and they sung We Shall Overcome, and there was some black people I know that took issue with that because they felt like they were singing our song. A few, and I mean this respectfully, but a few of you being killed doesn't equate to years and years of slavery and hangings and lynchings and castrations and rape and so on and so forth. Do you think that that's fair for them to be able to use what we might say is our song in a situation like that?
I don't think it was fair.
Mm-hmm.
And let me first say this before I make these comments. Since I'm not a supporter of LBGT culture, it's very important that I make everybody absolutely aware that I in no way, shape, or form condone what happened in that nightclub in Orlando, nor do I condone any type of harm or hurt or loss of life against any human being, whether they be heterosexual or homosexual. I need to say that because often, because I'm not a supporter of the culture, people will try to insinuate, suggest, or misrepresent my views as suggestive of inviting harm to LBGTs, which I don't. Nobody had a right to die that night, get them straight. However, we need to keep in mind that in 1969, right after Dr. King was assassinated, the Stonewall riots, which gave formal birth to the great gay struggle in America, was born. That was not by coincidence. Since Dr. King was murdered, the United States government has decided upon a program of never allowing the black agenda to be the primary social issue in America. Dr. King was a media genius. Dr. King knew exactly what he had to do and how he had to do it in order to keep the civil rights agenda on the 6 o'clock news every night and the 8 o'clock news every morning. And America said, we can never let that happen again. We cannot afford to let the rest of the world see how we treat black people. So they automatically had to find another social issue that they could use to block the black civil rights issue, and that became the gay movement. And so them singing We Shall Overcome, to me, is just another example of how the gay struggle has been basically, what do you want to say, bootlegging much of the terminology and stance of the black civil rights movement. As you often hear people say, gay is the new black. And I totally disagree with that statement, but I do understand the reference, which is to say that the gay movement has eclipsed the black struggle as the primary social issue in America. And that is perfectly all right with the government, because the only problem America has is making sure white supremacy is never up for debate. We can debate sex, we can debate gender, we can debate disability, we can debate class, we can debate religion, but we will not tolerate a debate on white power and white rule in this country. So as long as the gay agenda is the agenda of the day, the government is perfectly fine with it, which is why they use Barack Obama. You got to give white folks credit. They are very, very calculating and strategic. They put a black president in office to make sure that the black agenda was totally crushed in deference to the gay agenda. Isn't that interesting? We're going to put a black man in office so he can keep black people distracted while we take everything they fought for and give it to homosexuals.
Now, so I hope this doesn't stray Max too far from that point, but you made me think of it. So, Dr. Johnson, what's your what would be your rebuttal to when President Obama, and I believe this was pretty early in his presidency when people were getting on him, as far as from the black community, particularly like Dr. Cornel West. But when President Obama makes the comments such as, if we want something done, then we, pretty much the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so the argument was that the NAACP, the leaders such as, even yourself, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Cornel West, who, and so forth and so on, if we unite and make the noise to sort of force his hand, do you feel like his hand wasn't forced enough as far as President Obama's hand?
Black people did not force his hand at all. We didn't. Which is why our blood, Trayvon's blood is on our hands, Michael Brown's blood is on our hands, Sandra Bland's blood is on our hands. I hold us as responsible as the killers. Because you have to remember, it was black people who danced in the streets and said, we have arrived because we have a black president. It was black people who were on the news talking about, we might not need black colleges no more. We may no longer need black fraternities and sororities. We have a black president, so that's to signal that America has become equitable. We created the atmosphere. We created the atmosphere that allowed racism to come back by suggesting that America was somehow post-racial. Whenever you hear anybody talking about post-racial in this country, that means they're getting ready to be more racial. We created that. We took our foot off the gas, and as soon as we took our foot off the gas, the boat started traveling backwards.
Let me ask you a question about...
And before the Queen continues, I just want to get this point. Because we didn't hold Obama accountable, y'all, here's my hurt and my fear, and it's for my children and everyone else's children. There's been 44 presidents in the United States of America. 44. Obama is the first one since 1776. He's the first one whom black people never petitioned for any type of grievance or redress. Do you realize that? He's the only president in history that never had to be held accountable by black folks. Even Richard Allen and then held George Washington accountable. They might not got nothing, but they still protested. They still challenged. They still made demands. The president had to hear from black people. Every president except Obama. And because we let Obama slide, whoever gets in the White House next is not going to have to be accountable to you. Like, you can't say that Obama don't have to do nothing for black people and then turn around and say Trump and Hillary do. It doesn't work that way. You're either going to hold the executive branch responsible or you're not, which is why I say that our children's children, our great-grandchildren are going to suffer from the political mistakes we made in relation to Barack Obama.
So things get worse from here then, in your opinion?
Things get worse from here. Oh, yes, they get worse. They don't get better. They get worse. The only good thing is that I would prefer to have a white president. I never want another black president, ever. I don't ever want another black governor. To be honest, I don't even know if I want a black mayor. And let me tell you why. The average black politician is elected on white campaign money. It is white money that put Obama in office. It is white money that puts your black mayors in office. It is white money that puts your senators and congressmen in office. White racism can operate much more effectively behind a black veil. Much more effectively. I'd rather the face be white so black people can understand that this is white power.
Does it change anything?
We get confused about who's really in charge.
Does it change anything though? If it is,
know who's really calling the shots.
If it is a white face, does it change anything? Will it change our mindset? Will it change our actions? Will there be mobility?
We were in love with Bill Clinton.
Right.
Remember, he was the first black president.
Yeah, I remember.
Bill Clinton, which is ironic. You know, Bill Clinton is in the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame. These Negroes put a white man in a black Hall of Fame. When have you seen a black man in a white Hall of Fame? But nonetheless, here's a man who we said was the first black president. Even though he swelled up the prisons by giving us 3 strikes and you're out. Even though he gave us mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug-related offenses. Even though he kicked millions of black mothers off welfare and then made the other ones work for that little petty welfare check that they were getting. And this was what black people claimed was one of their greatest presidents. I rest my case.
Right, absolutely. Now, so to end that, then the legacy of President Obama, then if
most black people will say he was great, they're going to say he was great. Now, if you ask them to give specific achievements that were an advance for blacks under his presidency, they can't give you one. He didn't do one thing for black folks. Not one.
But now, does he get a free pass, though, for the simple fact that we mentioned earlier? And I won't say a free pass may be a bad term, but as far as if we didn't, push him and petition him like we have other presidents, then is he at, fault for that? When we look at his legacy.
Fault.
Okay.
He's still at fault because he went out of his way to fight for homosexuals. He gave them 3 laws. Gay people got 3 laws, a Supreme Court justice, and over 250 federal appointments. He fought for white women without being pushed. He fought for Mexicans and illegal immigrants without. He fought for every minority group in America but us. So no, he does not. He still has to be brought to their responsibility because he's the father of 2 black girls.
What could he have
he's
done?
Married to a black woman. It is unacceptable for the type of police genocide to be going on in this country, and for him, as the chief law enforcement agency, let's be clear: the president of the United States is the chief law enforcement officer in this country. He's the top, and we don't like to say that, but he is the top. By law, by constitutional authority, he is the top cop. So guess what? Every time a policeman murders a defenseless, unarmed black person in America, they murder that African with the full confidence in support of Barack Obama. You cannot separate the top from the top who are doing it.
But if he's in a inherently corrupt system with white money, then do you think there's anything that he even could have done if he tried?
Yes, it's called being a man. You're damn right. It's called being a man. Listen, I don't care what job I got. If I'm seeing my people get murdered down in the street like this, as a man, forget being president. As a man, I got to do something. As a man, I got to say, you know what? This is enough. I'm ordering a United States Department of Justice full investigation into the systemic nationwide genocide of black people by police. He could have done that. Why was there no federal investigation into this national epidemic? He could have put force to this. Now, don't get me wrong. It may have come back and said, but we didn't find anything wrong about what the cops did. But at least it did something. And you know what's so sad right now in his final couple months in office? Obama only got one agenda. You know what that is? To make sure the Democrats keep the presidency. That's it. And he knows talking about racism right now might not bid well for Hillary on election day. So Barack Obama more concerned about Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party than any black person you can name.
Right. I'm also curious as to whether or not people aren't necessarily trying to keep Hillary out of the White House, but keeping her husband out of the White House. But let me take it back just a little bit as far as what President Obama did not do for us. In your opinion, what could he have done during his presidency that benefited black people?
And I would say I just named the first.
Right.
He could have ordered a Justice Department investigation into the nationwide systematic genocide of blacks at the hands of police. That's number one. Number two, President Obama could have definitely improved upon the special education system by putting certain checks. Special ed is a federal law. It's a federal fund. It's federally funded. He could have put certain checks in the special education system to reduce the amount of black boys who are put in special ed and the amount of misdiagnoses that occur. He could have definitely done something about the mass unemployment of black men. Half the black men in America are unemployed. He did nothing to expand serious job training or employment opportunities for them at all in mass incarceration. Even if he only addressed juvenile incarceration, I thought President Obama could have changed some of the laws to make it more difficult to put juveniles in prison for a very long time. So, did certain things that everybody agrees is a problem. Okay? They don't agree on how to fix it. But even white folks got to admit, schools, prisons, unemployment, and police brutality. Those are four issues that everybody got to admit are major problems in this country for black folks. Education, incarceration, economic castration, and police extermination. He touched none of them.
In terms of racism, I've asked this question to a couple of people, and bear with me. What's your thought on whether or not police officers are, so to speak, pawns in this bigger issue of racism?
Okay. When we look at racism, let us be clear. Racism is a group system that is created by one group. They all participate. And they use this system to disadvantage all members of the other group. Racism is not selective. It doesn't say we just want to mess with the poor black. It messes with all the blacks. Racism, on the other hand, requires all white people to participate. Okay, so it doesn't say we just need these white people. No, all white people directly and indirectly participate, indirectly and indirectly benefit. Not just the police, but your best friend, the white folks black people sleeping with, the ones we're married to. All white people participate in this system that affords them a disproportionate share of America's opportunities, a disproportionate share of America's resources, a biased share of America's wealth, a biased share of American opportunity. We got to understand that. So it's not so much the commission of crime. That's one part of it. Police killing blacks, that's one part of racism. But what about the privilege that all white people exercise? The fact that they have a privilege not to be that they have a privilege not to be racially profiled as athletes. They have a privilege for their kids not to be taught by black teachers. They have the privilege of not being kept from buying a house in a certain neighborhood because of the color of their skin. They have the privilege of not being stopped and murdered by police on the street. White people exercise millions of privileges that black people are not even conscious of. And no white person in American history has ever led a movement against white privilege. If you know of one, call their name. You've had white people participate in civil rights. You've had white people participate in the sit-ins. their freedom rides. You had white people fight to improve the schools. You had white people fight for every little issue that affects black people as an isolated issue. But you've never had a white person lead a movement against the white privilege that they benefit from as a result of racism being in place.
And you always
never have, and you never will. Even the white liberal is a racist.
You're always
come
suspect.
to your neighborhood and fight, and he will go back to his white suburban segregated neighborhood at night.
Right, and you're always suspect of that too, because it's like, what exactly do you benefit from down here marching with us?
There's always an agenda.
Right.
When people go back to sleep, let's look at the abolitionist movement, which is probably our greatest. Okay, in fact, the 19th century was our greatest century since our greatest ancient Egypt. We did more in the 1800s, from 1800 to 1899. Black people achieved more than what you achieved from 1900 to 2016. Without question. Okay? And so when we look at the abolitionists, we had a lot of white people in the abolitionist movement. But guess what? None of them believe in equality between black and white. Right. That's the difference. All these white activists, none of them believe in equality. If you don't believe in equality of the races, you are automatically a proponent of white privilege, systematic disproportionality, systematic bias. See, this is what black people don't understand when they keep wanting to hold hands with white folks. They will join with you on an isolated issue. But there's no white person in America who is interested in dismantling white privilege. Because in order to dismantle white supremacy, they got to dismantle white privilege. And every white person loves the systematic benefits that they receive at the expense of black people. They will never fight to get rid of that. Never have, never will.
But some people believe that you have to have some white people on your side in order to make any change come about.
Nonsense. Total nonsense. Absolute nonsense. What you need is black power. Unapologetic, uncompromising black power. You don't need white folks. All they're going to do is soften your stick. Let's look at the NAACP. And I know a lot of good people in the NAACP. My remarks are no condemnation of the membership. And some good things have come out of NAACP. Brown versus Board of Education, for example. However, the NAACP was founded by white people who control the direction, and agenda of black progress in America. That's right. Why do you think the NAACP will spend $10 million on voter registration, but they won't spend $10 million to build a black supermarket? They won't spend $10 million to build a black school. They won't spend $10 million to build a black hospital. Do you know that the NAACP spent over $10 million on Barack Obama's campaign? $10 million for people to vote. That is insane. We ain't got supermarkets. We ain't got schools. We ain't got hospitals. We ain't got distribution networks, shipping. We ain't got job training. But we can waste $10 million on voting. You know why? Because voting is harmless and it does not challenge the status quo. You can vote all damn day, but you do not change the status quo with voting. Listen to me and listen to me well. If voting could change anything, it will be illegal.
And now, so that poses this question then. Now, do you think that taints the legacy of W.B. Du Bois in any way, being that he was one of the founding members? At least that's what we're told, or even the leadership now, which appears to be predominantly, if not all, black. Is that because it's already systematic?
You mean with relation to the NAACP?
Right. Yeah, with the NAACP, because W.B. Du Bois was a founding member, correct?
Yeah, you can say he was a founding member. White folks basically brought him in to legitimize the movement. Remember, they also kicked him out. Remember, he was kicked out by Walter White and then brought back later, and then he left, joined the Communist Party, renounced his United States citizenship, and moved to Ghana. A lot of people don't know that. The boy gave up his American citizenship. He died a citizen of Ghana. But here's the thing. It's not the people that are in positions within the structure of the organization. It's the hand that finances it. Look at the NAACP's National Board of Directors. They are not mostly black. Many of them are Europeans and many of them are European Jews. Look at the financing of the NAACP. They are not mostly financed by black folks. They're mostly financed by white folks who are foundations and all these other groups. The NAACP really is a white organization in black. It really is. And that's no disrespect to the NAACP. But if you want to wonder why you never see them involved in many of our cutting-edge issues, because they are paid to not be radical.
Now, what organizations come to mind then that you would want to promote? In regards to
there's no now on a local grassroots level. I see great organizations in every city I go to. I saw them in Milwaukee Sunday. I saw them in Chicago Saturday. I saw them in Boise, Idaho on Friday. I'm sure I'll see some in Europe. I'll see some in Houston in a couple of weeks. But there's a lot of good local grassroots organizations. I believe all the national groups have been corrupted and bought out. I think all national black leadership is self-serving and has largely been compromised. We need new leadership. Now is the time. Most of those who came in the post-civil rights era, they are of age now. And of course, if you study military science as I do, you know that once you get past the age of 60, you become more conservative because you're at a time where you just want to enjoy your life and reflect. And I can totally understand that. It's like when I was in South Africa 2 weeks ago, and I'll be on tour there in October for the whole month. Brothers and sisters are very upset about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela to them is Barack Obama. They feel that he negotiated freedom, but didn't see to it that any of the wealth changed hands. None of the wealth of South Africa changed hands. None of it. But my argument to them was I can still honor the young Nelson Mandela who went to prison because he was a freedom fighter. He was a man who was born into ethnic royalty. Okay, I don't like to use the word tribe. That's the white racist word, but he was born into ethnic royalty. He was a lawyer, very privileged position. He did not have to give his life fighting for the struggles of black folks. So I have to honor the young Mandela. The old Mandela, yes, he was competent. The old Mandela, yes, he did sell out. But at the same time, why did y'all allow him to negotiate the terms of freedom? The man just came out of jail after 27 years. The people are as much at fault as Nelson because you don't let a man that old, having been in prison that long, negotiate the terms of freedom. It should have been a team that included young folks and elders who didn't spend 27 years in jail who should have participated in that. See, we often like to isolate the leadership. We like to isolate the leadership, and we don't want to recognize the role that we played in the mistakes that were made.
And so Black Lives Matter and the movements that they're making, what's your opinion there?
I respect the fact that Black Lives Matter has galvanized a lot of young people who are now involved in activism who previously were not. I think that every movement needs to have an agitation force, an alarmist group of people that the minute racism rears its ugly, dirty head, they're the first ones on the scene. That's Black Lives Matter. They are the irritant, they are the agitant, they are the alarmists, they raise the attention to the issues, and I respect them for that. My only two criticisms I would have is, number one, you can't just be an alarmist. You have to be a constructionist. What are you building for African people? You just can't run around chasing Donald Trump and chasing Hillary Clinton. Okay, you can't just, go shining a light on racism. We know racism is there. I'm not saying that they should stop. But I'm asking, what do you do after you engage in that? What is the constructive agenda of Black Lives Matter? That's my question. I see all the alarmism and the agitation, and I welcome it. But where is the constructive, progressive plan of action? That's number one. Number two, I do know that Black Lives Matter was founded by members of the LGBT community, and I am somewhat concerned that on certain levels, because they are funded by white people, and of course, as a Pan-Africanist in the Garvey Act, was suspicious of any black organization that's funded by white folks. And I'm wondering on a certain level, is the Black Lives Matter an LGBT front to wrestle direction of the black civil rights leadership from the traditional heterosexual leadership into a more contemporary homosexual leadership? It could be an LGBT front to redirect the progress of the black civil rights movement.
Yeah, I do know one of the things.
It could be a takeover.
Right.
I hope it's not, but when I read the statements, the premise of Black Lives Matter on their website and some of the articles from the time, they're very, very clear that they are about advancing the LGBT struggle.
Right.
And so there's a conflict of interest there. So I'm a little concerned about whether or not they're being used simply to take attention away from the traditional, unapologetically African alpha male and the uncompromising black woman. Because our leadership has largely been a heterosexual leadership. And this might be an attempt to put the black civil rights movement thoroughly under the umbrella and guidance of the LGBT mission.
I do know on their website they have some they have some mission goals that seem to be targeted at the black community, in particular, the addressing the police brutality and things of that sort. But yeah, I think it's definitely something to look out for as far as the front and their representation.
You're listening to 101.3 Jams, in my humble opinion. Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. We'll be right back with Dr. Umar Johnson.
on terror, it's a bunch of bull. Just a poor excuse for you to use up all your bullets. How much money does it take to really make a full clip? 9/11 building 7, did they really pull it? And a bunch of other cover-ups. Your child's future was the first to go with budget cuts. If you think that hurts, then wait, here comes the uppercut. The school was garbage in the first place. That's on the up and up. Keep you at the bottom, but tease you with the upper crust. You get it, then they move it, so you never keeping up enough. If you turn on TV, all you see is a bunch of what the dude is dating so-and-so, blabbering about such and such, and that ain't Jersey Shore. Homie, that's the news. And these the same people supposedly telling us the truth. Limbaugh is a racist. Glenn Beck is a racist. Gaza Strip was getting bombed, Obama didn't say. That's why I ain't vote for him. Next one either. I'm a part of the problem. My problem is I'm peaceful, and I believe in the people. Yeah. It's alright. Never heard it, but if we know better, then we probably deserve it. Jihad is not holy war. Where's that in the worship? Murdering is not Islam, and you are not observant. And you are not a Muslim. Israel, don't take my side, cause look how far you've pushed them. Walk with me into the ghetto. This where all the went. Complain about the liquor store, but what you drinking liquor for? Complain about the gloom, but when you pick a broom up, just listen in the pot. Ain't gon' make it stop. A rebel in your thoughts ain't gon' make it out. If you don't become an actor, you'll never be a factor. Pills with million side effects, take them when the pain's felt. Wash them down with diet soda, killing off your brain cells. Crooked banks around the world would gladly give a loan today. So if you ever miss a payment, they can take your home away. Worse than all the violence. Fear is such a weak emotion, that's why I despise it. We scared of almost everything, afraid to even tell the truth. So scared of what you think of me, I'm scared of even telling you. Sometimes I'm like the only person I feel safe to tell it to. I'm locked inside a cell in me, I know that there's a gel in you. Consider this shit belling out, so take a breath and hell a few. My screams is finally getting free, my thoughts is finally yelling down. It's alright.
And we're still here, family. Maxilia Robinson, Charles Lewis, on In My Humble Opinion 101 Jams. As you've been hearing, we have very special guests with us, the illustrious Dr. Umar Johnson. And so, sir, I wanted to start this last segment with you and talking about our next steps and our solutions. The first thing that comes to mind is in regards to the uproar, you could say, that's going on right now by us as a people. Whether we look at the Black Lives Matter movement and we look at the response to police brutality, to me there seems to be a lot of black business owners, black professionals, black families, black communities just seem to be a time where more than any in my short lifetime seem to be waking up and arising and saying, you know what, we need to be more independent. We need to stop supporting racist corporations that's not putting back in our community, things like that. But the action that follows it still seems to be lacking. So I wanted your opinion on what you feel is the best ways for us to encapsulate this moment in time and really capitalize off of it as a people.
We have had 4 major periods in our struggle. This not only relates to the United States, it relates to the global African world. The first stage of our struggle was for our humanity. If you remember, before we could fight to end slavery, we had to first prove that we were people. A lot of Africans forget this stage. They go straight to the emancipation. No. We had to fight for our humanity. Okay? We had to prove that we were not animals. So stage one was a fight for humanity. Stage two was a fight for liberation. Stage three was a fight for equality. That would include the civil rights movement. That would include the African independence movement. So you had a fight for humanity, a fight for liberty, a fight for equality. And guess what this fourth one is? And this is the most challenging and the most dangerous of them all. We are in the fourth stage in our confrontation with white supremacy. And that is now we are fighting for our survival. This ain't just about humanity. This ain't just about liberty. This ain't just about equality. We are fighting for the right to exist. Because right now, America is trying to exterminate the African in America. Simultaneously trying to exterminate the African in Africa. When I was in South Africa a few weeks ago, every other corner in Soweto, every other corner in Joburg, every other corner in Durban, every other corner in Kimberley, South Africa, were signs advertising abortion, birth control, and hysterectomy. Planned Parenthood International is one of the greatest weapons of mass destruction being used against black people, not only in America, but around the world, where they go and advocate so-called family planning, as they like to call it, trying to motivate black women to, abort their babies and not even have any babies. In fact, there was a very powerful piece of legislation that was put out by Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in 1974. Everyone should read it. It's the State Security Memorandum 2200. It was totally about population control. And in this document, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger very articulately said that we need to go into third world nations and advocate education and employment for the women, because when women get educated and they get work and they go to work, they stop having children. This is part of the reason why we see an explosion in education and employment for African American women in America. That's not being done to advance black women. Okay, the white man don't care anymore about the black woman, and he cares for the black man. But they know that in doing that, sisters will be less likely to have children, and it has been working. Our numbers have been dropping steadily. That's why they say Latinos are about to overtake African Americans, because they have been very successful with their abortion, they have been very successful with their family planning, they have been very successful with their hysterectomy movement. And also, they have this new thing where they want black women to let their daughters get their cervical cancer shot. I know you guys have heard of it, where they want every black girl to get a cervix shot so they don't get cancer. That ain't nothing but genocide. Black mothers need to be very careful not to give their daughters that. And 2 years ago, the Food and Drug Administration passed a law that said now a girl can get an over-the-counter, what they call it, the next day pill. The next day pill.
Oh, yeah, morning after or something like that.
The morning after pill. Before, you needed parental consent to get that if you were under 18. Now they're allowing it at 16. And I heard in some states you can even get it at 14. At the local drugstore, no parent notification whatsoever. Your daughter could go in there and take this pill that can literally lead to her hemorrhaging to death. So they're willing to reduce the numbers of black folks at all costs. And the irony is that black people are so in love with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is one of the biggest population control junkies in the past 20 years. In fact, when she was Secretary of State, she said on record that the greatest threat to American interests in the world is overpopulation. Not Al-Qaeda, not the Taliban, but overpopulation. I see too many black babies being born in this world.
Now, so when it comes to abortion, then your professional and personal stance, do you feel like that the whole creationism piece plays a part in that, or do you feel it's all systematic?
Systematic. First of all, as far as Roe versus Wade goes, abortion will never be illegal in America. Let's be clear about a couple things. Anything that interferes with America's extermination project against the African will never be made illegal. There will never be gun control, because so many blacks are being killed by guns by each other. There will never be abortion control, because that's going to stop the whole population moving. Anything that has to do with black extermination will never be regulated. Never will you see control over that. They will never stop that, at least until they get rid of us. Now, when there's no more black folks, then they might tell white women you can't get an abortion. They're not going to tell white women you can't get an abortion as long as they got black women who they want.
Yeah, that reminds me of the whole gun debate as well. Because when you look at Sandy Hook, what happened there was a little bit of a of an uproar from white folk, and then the same thing. And I remember having this conversation with someone. As unfortunate it is for the retaliation that happened on the innocent police officers, if it wasn't for that retaliation, that news would have went away very fast.
Oh yeah. First of all, you got to realize something. America is never going to disarm the white man, because if America ever needs to call for a purge of black America, it's going to rely on its citizens to carry it out. And it's what black people don't understand. Every white person in America is a de facto member of the United States military. Every last one. And the United States Constitution gives full reign and power to the governors and the president of the United States to deputize anybody they feel like it. They feel it's in the best interest of national security. Every white person is a de facto member of the U.S. military. So the question becomes, is your white friend, your white best friend, your white wife, your white husband, are they really going to look their people in the face and say, I'm not going to fight with you against the African, I'm going to fight with the African against you? I think we all know the answer to that, and the answer is hell no. Blood calls blood. And black people got a bad habit of thinking that white folks are more loyal to the black struggle than the white struggle. You know why we think that? Because we are more loyal to the white struggle than the black struggle. See, we don't have any loyalty to self. See, and because we don't have any loyalty to self, we think other people operate like that. And white folks do a very clever job of psychologically confusing us into believing that they're actually not for their own people. They do a good job of making us think that they're just a bunch of individuals doing their own thing, living their own life. That's ain't nothing but nonsense. Whenever America calls on a white man to put black folks in their place, they will be most willing and ready to serve.
Now, and we've mentioned a lot, and we talked about nationalism. We talked about current leaders and what needs to be done. And there's one consistent name that comes up when that discussion is brought up, and we've even talked about it here, which is Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So, as far as your work that you do, I wanted to get your feedback as far as any influence that he may have played, and as far as the Nation of Islam and what that represents for black people.
Well, I think the Nation of Islam definitely has a legacy in the black community that needs to be respected. I think Minister Farrakhan for the past, 50 years have been one of the most consistent voices, for the black struggle or what have you. As far as my influence, I'm a Pan-African. So the Nation of Islam has had no influence in my life. I'm a Garvey, which was around before the nation. In fact, it was Garvey that influenced Mr. Muhammad. So, there's no influence for me personally. I'm RBG all day. But I definitely have a lot of friends in the Nation of Islam who support my work. I support their work, and I think they've definitely, left their mark, on the movement. Mr. Farrakhan is an elder now. I think he needs to be respected as an elder. And I think black America needs to start grooming his next set of leaders, because you need the elders for counsel. You need the youth for war.
All right. Before we close out this interview, and again, thank you for your time, sir. We appreciate it. I just want to open the mic up to you as far as, let's talk about your purpose and the legacy that Dr. Umar Johnson wants to leave.
I'm just warming up, so I really can't speak on the legacy. But in terms of the purpose, as a Pan-African, it's obviously we want to impact the future of our race. I've chosen to do it through education by building a school. I want to let all your listeners know that they're more than invited to join us in Houston, Texas, September 9th and 10th for the National Independent Black Parent Association Training Conference. Anybody in America, any black person, you do not have to have children, youth, and college students are invited. If you would like to help us start a chapter of the National Independent Black Parent Association in your city, please get in contact with us, please. We would love to have you down in Houston for the training. You have to get the training in order to start a chapter. The National Independent Black Parent Association will comprise itself of 7 committees: a special ed committee to fight against special ed fraud. There will be a discipline committee to fight against suspensions and expulsions of black children. Finance committee to fight for how the money should be spent in the school district. A policy committee to change the local operating procedures that disproportionately affect our children. There will be a social support committee to support our struggling parents. A homeschool committee and a parent advocacy committee to change a cadre of parent advocates that can accompany our parents into the schools, but they have to show up for meetings, because it is our position that no parent should ever go to a meeting by themselves. So this is the first national black movement ever in America for black parents. And so if anybody wants to be a part of a change, people always say we need change. and we need an organization. Well, I'm inviting anyone who wants to be part of change to come on down to Texas and get the training and go back to Charlottesville or Richmond or Norfolk or Hampton or for wherever you're from, anywhere in the country, to start a chapter of this new and most necessary organization. Also, I will be hosting the second annual Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Unapologetically African Black College and Consciousness Tour. If you have sons or daughters between the age of 11 and 17, they can go with us to the southern part of the eastern coast of America. We'll be starting in Atlanta, where we're going to visit a whole bunch of colleges and a whole bunch of Black history landmarks. We just did the first one this past July. The children loved it. They went to the Nat Turner Land. They went to Frederick Douglass Home, the Harriet Tubman Museum. They went to Cheney and Lincoln and Morden and Howard and Hampton and all over. They can't wait for next year, and I just want parents to know that their children can come with us as well. And I do my Africa trip every 2 weeks out of every summer. We go to Africa. We just came back from South Africa and Senegal, so we'll be going again the last week of July, first week in August. So any information anyone needs, they can email me, Dr. Umar Johnson at yahoo.com, DRUMAR Johnson at yahoo.com, through the website, drumarjohnson.com, or they can call 8444 DRUMAR.
And so on your website, these events are posted as well?
Not yet. I'm getting my website revamped, but if you're on social network, they're all on my social network pages. Twitter and Instagram, they can follow me at Dr. Umar Johnson. Twitter and Instagram at Dr. Umar Johnson. Facebook, I use my Yoruba last name, which is Ifa Tunde. So on Facebook, you want to find Dr. Umar Ifa Tunde, IFA Tunde, and there's several imposter pages on Facebook, so you want to be careful, but you know you have the right page, because the profile picture is myself and Brother Charlemagne from my most recent Breakfast Club interview. Right,
yeah, I saw that. That was awesome. It's awesome. And now in Virginia, I'm sure the HBCUs in Virginia are on there. You be at Hampton, Norfolk State, Virginia State Union.
Yeah, we went to Hampton and we went to Norfolk State. We were supposed to do Virginia Union, but schedule didn't allow for that. Virginia State never got back in touch with me, but we're going to try. We might get to them this year, but because we're going to be starting in Atlanta, I don't know if we'll be pushing up. But I am going to do a third one, which is going to be North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, because they got Bluefield State. So we're going to get back to those Virginia school stuff. So every year we're going to do a different section. So we did the Northeast, then we're going to do the Southeast, then we're going to do that Mid-Atlantic. That would be the whole Virginia, North Carolina section. And then we're going to do the Deep South, so your Texas HBCUs, Louisiana HBCUs, and then we're going to do your Midwest, which is your Ohio HBCUs and that type of thing. Anyone who wants to bring me out for a speaking engagement can get in contact with my assistant. Email your request to Dr. Umar Speaks, DRUMAR SPEAKS, Dr. Umar Speaks at yahoo.com or Dr. Umar Speaks at gmail.com. Either one, and my assistant will get in touch with you and tell you how we got to make that happen. My schedule fills up quick. As you know, I'm the most requested Black scholar in the world, have been for the past 4 years. So my schedule fills up very quickly. So if you know now when you want to do it now. I'm already accepting Black History Month invitations. That's how, because October, I'm in South Africa the whole month. My September is pretty much booked. I got Houston when I get back from Austria. From Houston, I got Des Moines, Iowa. I got Boston. I have Kentucky State University up in Frankfort, Kentucky. October, South Africa. November, I got Orlando, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. I also have, who just invited me to come, Columbus, Georgia. I still got a little bit of November left. I got a little bit of December left, but really it's almost time to start looking for January. But if you want to make this happen this fall, we can definitely do, especially on the weekday. Colleges are good, because colleges often want me on a weekday, like a Wednesday, Thursday, which is good. Them Saturdays and them Fridays, the hood snatch them up real quick. So if you're looking at a weekday at a college, that's ideal.
All right, sounds good. Once again, Dr. Johnson, thanks for talking with us today.
The honor was mine.